who's 7 years. Mr. Krishna Bhagavatula, father to Pravalika, who's 23, and Sanjana, who's 16. Dr. Gauri Rao, mother to Sudhir, who's 20, and Akshata, who's 18. Mr. Raghunath BS, father to Sagar, who's 28, and Sujan, who's 22. Now, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Babita, who will moderate the session. Over to Dr. Babita.
Good evening, parents, and good evening to our viewers. Yesterday, we had an amazing session with our siblings. The inputs were heart-touching, at the same time, very, very inspiring. The maturity and clarity they showed at such a young age was phenomenal. In the same situation, parenting has its own challenges and rewards. Today, we will discuss with our parents the strategies they have used in parenting. To our panel of parents, we have a few questions which we will put out to you. You will have 2 to 3 minutes to answer each of the questions. We would like you to focus on the strategies and solutions that have worked for you. Yeah, we will start with a scenario when your children were young. How and when did you help your neurotypical child understand about their special sibling? Did you have to plan and explain this, or it happened naturally during the course of the years? Yes. Dr. Gauri, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Gauri. I'm mother to 2 kids. My older one, Sudhir, is a neurotypical child, and my younger child is Akshata, who is a child with special needs. Now the age gap between my kids is not much. It's just 1 year, 4 months. So they're like virtually like, twins. So for me, I think the easiest thing was to just let them grow together. So I used to leave them together. I did not segregate the children at all. For me, it was like, even though I knew my daughter had special needs, it was more like, I did not see her as a special needs child to begin with. It was like that special needs aspect of hers was something which was there, but I tried as much as possible to see her just as my older son. And I think a part of my attitude rubbed off onto him. And I think that is what he picked up, because children pick up from their adults. They unconsciously copy our attitudes. So it was only natural that I treated both of them the same. And I think as my son started growing up, especially during the schooling years, they both used to go to the same school. My husband being in the Air Force, we were transferred very frequently every 2 to 3 years. So most of the times they were in neurotypical schools, regular schools. I could not put my daughter in a special school. So he was just 1 class ahead of her initially. But as he became about 4 to 5 years old, that is when he started realizing, because they had the same peer group, they all played together in the same playground. So that's when he started realizing that there is something different about his sister, like she didn't talk much, she didn't interact much. So he used to come and ask me. I did not tutor him about it, because I wanted to see if he can realize things on his own. This is the approach I used. But my approach always was to treat them as equals, on every level. Though I used to take care of her requirements, I tried my best to keep it on, level playing ground, not making any differences. And I do think that has had a very big impact in making the child understand that, the older sibling who's a neurotypical child, that his sister is not, though she has her own special requirements, she also is like any other regular human being with her own, aspirations, her likes and dislikes. And honestly, I think my son, as he started growing up, he definitely became much more mature for his age. I could always see in his peer group, he was a peacemaker. He was a guy who made sure that the other kids didn't fight, that kind of thing. I could see the impact of, his sister growing up with him, and he could make out. He initially did not ask much, but he would come and ask, Mama, why does she not talk much? I first remember him asking that. So then I would tell him, okay, the area I would explain the brain to him, how much ever he could understand as a 5, 6 year old, and give examples from everyday life, like one flower blooms very quickly. We had a lot of flowers in the house, so I would give him everyday examples in a simple way, because I did not want to condition his mind. I didn't want him to grow up with that feeling that his sister is different from him or others. I wanted him to realize it in whatever way possible on his own. So I think that was the main thing I did. I did not consciously tell him till he was prepared to ask. But I used to keep observing both of them, and see how their interactions are. And by and large, by God's grace, the older child is very, very mature for his age right from the beginning. So I didn't really have any problems with him. Whatever explanations I used to give to him, he used to understand in his own way. And he was extremely loving towards his sister. He tried to pull her into his own peer group, and even the kids would look at his attitude towards her, the other children also. So we have to understand, children who are young copy each other. If there is a separation in the attitude of siblings, then that is what the peers will also copy. So they are all very, sensitive to each other's moods, each other's attitudes. So it's very important that you tell your neurotypical child as much as needed. Don't condition them beyond what is required till they are mature enough to handle it. And they will come and ask. I have seen, at least with my son, he would come and ask, why is she not doing this? Or can we help her do? After some time, when he was about 10, 11, he would ask me, Mama, what can I do to help her? Like, he was now more keen to see if he can help her. So this strategy, I do believe, has helped a lot of not conditioning them more than needed. Tell precise, correct things, and allow them to grow naturally together as much as possible. So that did help. So I found that was better along the way to keep telling rather than, briefing them, even before, because see, the child also changes, even the special child changes. Sometimes they improve way beyond your expectations. But you have conditioned, if you end up conditioning your neurotypical child more than needed, then it can backfire. This is what at least I used to feel. But fortunately, this strategy has worked for me. Right.
Okay, I'm Fatima. I have two kids. The elder one is 23, he's neurotypical, and the younger one is 20, he has autism. For us, it was a gradual process. Now, ours is a nuclear family. So he was 6, the elder one was 6 when the younger one was diagnosed, and there was an age gap of 3 years. We couldn't leave him alone. So he would want to join us for all the therapist visits and doctor visits. So it was a gradual process. He would listen to what they were saying. So he started absorbing as to, what is happening around. And when he didn't understand, then he would come and he would, ask us, why is this happening? Why is he having, these behavior issues? Or why is he crying? Or how do I communicate? Then I used to, answer his questions, but it wouldn't be a very serious one. I would just give him practical, information on what is actually his weakness and, how we can help him. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. Hi, this is Dr. Madhvi. I have two kids. The elder one, neurotypical, is 15, and the son who's neurodiverse is 7 plus. So you see, I have a huge age gap, and this actually worked for us because by the time we started, diagnosis might come at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5, but there are symptoms. There are things after 1. Then you might not go for diagnosis, but you can see them. So similarly for us, practically she was around 10 when we started noticing things with him. So I would say I did not prepare her. It happened very organically for us. As Fatima mentioned, for us also, she was listening, she was observing. But I do remember once she broke down cried and came to me and asked, so does that mean my brother will never speak? Or does that mean he will never play with me? Or does that mean he'll be different? So I remember giving her the example of ice cream analogy. I told her, yeah, you remember I had lemon flavor ice cream which none of you liked. But nevertheless, I liked it and it was an ice cream. So similarly, all of us are different. And similarly, your brother, he is different. Whether he will speak or not, how different he would be, I cannot answer these questions now. But what I know, if we provide love to him, if we work with him, he will be better than this. This I can assure you. Tomorrow will be better than today. And he was very matured for her age from the beginning. So she got it. And honestly, then after a while, she actually, I think, forgot it, or she accepted it so well that it never, and another thing, she used to come along with me for therapies once in a while because she was already 11ish, 12ish, so she would stay back also. But whenever she would come with me, she would observe other children there. And then she would just not say anything, but she would hug her brother tight on the way back home and would say, Mama, I wish may all the children, they're working so hard, much harder than us. So they are in a better off position, as you say. I said they will be. So for us, it was a very gradual, organic thing, nothing really sat her down except that one top of ice cream.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Krishna. We have two kids, two daughters. The older one is Pravalika. She's Down syndrome, diagnosed at the birth itself. And the younger one is a normal kid who is 16 years old now. They have about 6 years apart. One thing happened is because the younger one is normal kid, by the time she started realizing, she knew like her sister is different and people are treating her differently. So the challenge we had is slightly different. It's not so much of inclusion because by the time she started realizing and she started growing up, she knew like her sister is different and requires different attention. But the challenge she faced a lot is actually about the society. So we need to manage the societal things for her rather than just inside the house. We grew up both of them alike. There is no difference when we are treating both of them. So there was not a big challenge as parents for us. But for us, most of the parenting is actually how to convince the younger one why the society is behaving differently when you have a kid who is not normal. So a lot of parental effort for us is actually convincing the younger one, stating that why it is different, why people are behaving differently, rather than telling her what is different with her sister itself. So we need to, a lot of times as parents, we ignore the society, but the society doesn't ignore, right? They still treat the special needs kid as a special kid. And that's where, a lot of energy and strategies go behind how to make sure that she is not overreacting for somebody who is actually reacting when they're seeing a special needs kid. So some of the strategies is we always took them together. We made sure that they are bonding together as siblings rather than leaving the special needs kid or the normal kid when we are going for any activities for either of them, right? That helped them to create a bond among themselves. And that also helped the younger one to become a lot more mature at a very young age itself, right? So as parents, it was tough task, but we need to keep educating her incrementally rather than letting them to drink through a fire hose when they get to know about this one. So it has to be a slow progress as a strategy to bring them as normal kids, as normal siblings, and making sure that they are aware of the differences. That's what we actually try to do all the time.
Can I?
Yes, Vidya, go.
So I'm Vidya, and my older one, Aishwarya, is neurotypical. She's 26, and my younger one, Aditya, is 21. So 5 years of age gap. So by the time he was diagnosed, he was 3 and she was 8. And I mean, I don't think I have a great positive story to share because I was groping in the dark because I was in the north. And by the time I came here to Bangalore and to even understand what autism is and to process it and to accept, not accept, I think acceptance goes over a long period of time. So to process the information itself took some time. So thanks to some of the older parents like Anita Sharma, Akila Vaidyanathan, they would share some of the coping strategies. So I thought I mean, it was really hard for me to for myself to process to time and thereby to even help my daughter understand what the situation is. And it's okay to have a sibling like this took a very long time. So I don't think it was a very positive scene in my family for me with both the kids. So what I would do was I thought I kept them separate initially for quite a few years. Maybe she was 12, 13, or maybe even 14, 15 is the time when I realized that, oh my God, like she is growing independently and he's growing independently. Like, so that's when I realized that, what do I do now? So because I used to take him for therapies and I never included her. I thought, let her go and play with her friends. I mean, why should she come to therapies with me? This is the thought I had. And I would every time think like, you go do your homework or you enjoy, you go for your dance class. So whenever I'm taking him for therapies, I always put her either in classes where she would be occupied, where I would be, it is my own journey. So I took it as an independent journey where I thought I am responsible for it. I will deal with it. And she need not be a part of it was my thought, which I realized was not the right thing. Maybe partially I should have included her, where we had a lot of discussion when she became a teenager. She grew up into an adolescent where she had a lot of anger, where she would be very angry with me, asking me like, you never gave me time. Where were you for me? So these kind of fights we had, a lot of fights where I realized like, what do I do now? So then I had to leave my son and then focus on my daughter then. And she was in the 10th. So a lot of drama happened. And then one thing that really connected them was their common passion, which was music. My daughter sings and my son is an instrumentalist. So I think that was the savior which came, and I really cashed on that. And then I started to work. A lot of repair work happened after that. I think communication and awareness really helps. Communicating with the child, telling the child that even if you have made a mistake, I think we are not like gods who can be great all the time. We can lose temper, especially with a special child around. It's like really hard. We can be sometimes out of our moods, but many times I have apologized to my daughter saying that if I was not there for you, I'm really sorry, but I can be there now for you. So she took time to cope with the complete, process that happened where like she could never accept her brother for a very long period of time. She was very angry with him. She never spoke to him. Initially, she just loved him like anything. And after a period of time where he was diagnosed and his therapies happened, she just hated him because she always blamed him that it was because of him that I did not get to be with my mother. So then later on, like 15 plus, I started working with her. I started communicating with her. There a lot of repair, a lot of communication, a lot of awareness helped me. And then being there and connecting them through music really helps. So I always felt a common passion or a common interest that if the kids have together, cashing on that will be fantastic. So that is what came as a savior. And later on, they went to make multiple videos, jamming videos, and they used to release videos. So that really helped. So, but honestly, I feel like when a mother has a newly diagnosed child, the mother's mental health is so important. So important that the mother needs a lot of care, a lot of comfort, and that really helps to support, to help her to balance both the kids. That's about it.
Mr. Raghunath? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have two kids. The first one is like 28, and the second one, who is the special kid, is 22. The age gap between them really made my elder kid understand pretty quick. There was something, some issue with this guy. So basically, he was diagnosed with speech language impairment and a little bit low IQ level. We treated both of them without any bias. We just used to go do things normally to them. Up to a point, all that went on fine. At some stages, we have to give him additional instructions compared to a normal kid. Okay, do this. I mean, you have to make a little bit more further adjustment. So it was like, you know, slowly, like osmosis, we figured out how we can handle him. Earlier on, we accepted that there is an issue. It's like a card game. You're dealt with bunch of cards. You try to do the best to win the game. So never there was any like, you know, whining or like, you know, sad part. We are eternally optimistic. We keep trying one day at a time. We never give up. And my wife is completely committed to my younger kid. And the elder kid also knows, due to academic pressures, we never transferred much responsibility to the elder kid. But he would read up a lot of things on his own. And he used to come and tell us, let's do this way, let's do that way. And he never joined us for therapies or anything like that. We used to go separately for therapies and other things. Outwardly, my kid is fine. But when you talk to him after your first stage of back and forth conversation, you can figure out, okay, there is a limit. His growth has been impeded, or his height and his weight, his growth, his mental growth is not there. You can easily figure out that. So we came to know that we have to work basically at every stage of the game, teach him more logic. The doctors had told, keep him in the regular school and also give him more logic related things. Learning, every stage of the game is learning. When you take him to a market or wherever you go, you just think in a different fashion and try to give him few additional instructions where it will spook him to think a little bit further. Beyond that, it was like, you know, take it as it comes, you know. No, we are concerned, but the concern never translated to worry. We were only concerned, and we are putting efforts from day one. And I think that has fetched some results, for sure, I can say that. And now coming to Mitra for Life, and the social interaction has increased. So we are seeing some changes. But as far as both the kids go on, there is nothing much we do. Academically, they're totally different, but otherwise they are the same. The younger kid is much taller and much bigger than the older kid. He shares very well. So we are at peace with the way he is.
Okay, thanks a lot, parents, for your sharing. I think we look at the next question and request you to just stay at 2 to 3 minutes so we can cover the whole topic. When your children were young, what is the one thing you have done to build a bond between them? I think there will be a little overlap from what you shared, but I think this is a very important question. I just repeat it. When your children were young, what is the one thing you have done to build a bond between them? Vidya, I'd like you to start this.
Yes. So I thought I would send my son to all the birthday parties that my daughter would go, and we would plan dinners, take them together. But again, as I said, like early age was very difficult for me to figure out how to bond them. my bonding appeared. All that happened, positive story, all happened post 15 years of my daughters, which is like 10 years of my son. That's when I really figured out how to bond them. Music really helped them. I started talking to her about it a lot more, and I was open to hear whatever she was wanting to share. Even if it is very negative, she is angry, she was upset, I was open to listen to her. And I gave her a lot of time. I was very patient with her. I think time really helps, and being very patient with both the kids. I don't think these things happen so easily. It needs to happen at a very early age. Otherwise, it takes a lot of time. It takes its own time, and it's a process, natural process. So that way, going out together as a family for holidays, common passion is what really helped them to be together, and also talking to them about how a special needs child can feel their emotions. So creating that awareness in the older child helps them to be more empathetic with the younger one.
Thank you, Vidya. Who would go next?
Yeah, I can go next.
Yes.
It's a tough question to answer because there is no one thing that you have to do to create the bond. So saying that there's only one thing you can point out might be a very, very difficult one to say this one. Because when we started growing up the kids, in each and every activity, we wanted to make sure that they're going together along. But one or two things I can call out very specifically. One is the passion for music. The older one, she always loved music. So the younger one obviously got into that one. So both of them, they used to sit and listen to songs from very young age and watch movies together. That's one thing they even do today after so many years, right? That's one thing. The second one, what my wife used to do a lot is sit with them and read a book. And slowly the younger one took the control and she started reading books for the older one because of the fact that, she requires a lot of help in reading. The younger one used to take the lead and start reading the books when my wife is busy. That is the second thing that helped them to grow up together, spend time together, reading books, etc., watching movies together and all. The third one, when my wife is busy, the older one, even though she's a special needs kid, she used to feed her younger sister. When the younger one is very, very small, when she's 1 year, 1.5 years, she refused to eat quite a bit. And my wife used to run behind her to actually feed her. Slowly, the older one, when she's 7 or 8 years old, she started taking over the control and she started feeding the younger one. So these are the things, some small things that happened in the family, which built quite a bit of bond between them. Then what it created is actually it created a roadmap for them to travel together. Today, both of them, they learn music, dance together. They go to the same teacher. They don't see that there's a difference between them. While inherently they know that both of them are different, but they know they are siblings, that they are growing up together. That's probably, as parents, we need to identify common interests and make sure that they are going through multiple items that they're going to use as a bonding among themselves.
Thank you, Krishna. That was an interesting sharing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in our case, I would say yes, passion for music was definitely there. Now they both of them are into Korean pop, much to my annoyance. So that was one thing, music. Second thing, I think the best thing was I let them be. I just let them be. Because I think children find the ways out. The love they have for each other is natural. This is what I believe. I never put her into the thing that you have to do this or you don't have to do this with him. Whatever she wanted. I have a very clear memory that when he started hand flapping, and I was, like this was a new behavior and I was all panicky about it. She just made a song and dance out of it. Hum ud jayenge, she would sing, and both of them would flap the hands and run around the house. And trust me, it went off in 2 days. This is when I figured out you don't need to be too technical to handle things. All you need is the heart. So I just let them be. They would, like, she just found her ways to, she never allowed him to zone out, actually. He, they would have, we had a bathtub. So they would, every Sunday, they would be in the bathtub together. Both of them love water. So we make sure that once a year we go to the beach. We are in the northern India. So going to the beach needs planning, needs vacation. So like, but both of them love water. So every Sunday, they would be into the bathtub, the swimming classes. After she would be done with her classes, she would enter the kiddies pool to, splash water with him. So this was another thing which they have in common, the love for water. And third thing, I strongly believe, let them be, because she found her ways. And matlab, he mentioned in his school, which is an inclusive school, that the best friend, in the best friend section, he wrote, I was a little aghast when the teacher called me up and she was talking about, we had an activity about best friend. I was like, oh man, my poor boy. And he wrote his sister's name, that my best friend is Varnika Didi. So that was like, I was like, okay, we are sorting now.
Yeah, that's nice. Let them be. Yes.
Yeah, so as I said, the age difference between the kids is very less. So I basically used to just leave them together. So they were doing everything together. And it took us also a very long time to come to, even though like me and my husband are both doctors, I can assure you, you don't know much about special needs in that sense. You cannot really come to a diagnosis in that sense. So as I said, we used to treat her like a neurotypical child, and they both literally grew up together. And there was no differentiation in behavior. For me, it was like, okay, she has an issue, but whatever it be, she has to be as much as possible like her brother. So though people used to tell me, don't compare, let her be like her, I said, I agree that I shouldn't compare, but she has to have some common ground. We cannot bond with her so much because we are adults. And I think my son took it very naturally, that we are very fortunate about that. He would force her into activities with himself. So that bond was very natural because they literally grew up together. I didn't actually have to do much. And whatever things he liked, she started liking. Of course, she has her own taste now that they are much older. She has her own individual likes and dislikes. But yes, and he, even though he started understanding that she's different, they had same peer groups. And because of my husband, as I said, he's in the Air Force, so we got transferred very frequently. So for the kids, it also meant that peer group changed every 2-3 years, which meant they had to make new friends. So they were natural allies. They both had to get together, even if she was not very communicative, whatever it is, like they both had to be like a team, because they are coming into a new place, making new friends. And what we did as a family was we were very social. As it is, life in the armed forces is extremely social. We have a lot of get-togethers, a lot of gatherings. So we made sure that we did not exclude ourselves or our kids from anything. And we traveled a lot. We traveled by road, we traveled by train, by plane, you just name it. We actually traveled a lot, and I think that has also helped them bond, because when you travel as a family, there's a lot you have to do. It's a lot of survival. Like when we used to travel by road, I have even put my kids' pot on the car rooftop when they needed to take a toilet break. We've done all kinds of weird things. We've gone very long train journeys where both of them had their own pots, so we had to wait for everybody on the train to sleep, then put newspaper in the corridor, put the kids one by one on the pot. So, I think all those funny things which we did with them kind of helped them. Like my son would see that, okay, my sister is just like me, So there was really no difference in the way he viewed her. And as he grew older, I think the first time he realized she's different is when he entered teenage. But by then they already had a very strong bond. And he was very determined. Even till today, he says, yes, she has problems, but I still see her as a regular kid with something different. So he is very firmly, his firm conviction is, okay, and he used to come for therapy, so he used to see there what is happening. So he said, yeah, it's just that she needs a little different way of teaching. It's nothing, it's no big deal. Even though he's 21, he feels the same. So I think allowing them to be together, to do everything together and not differentiating in attitudes, help them bond very fast. And of course, they grew up literally together, virtually together.
Sorry,
they had to do a lot of things together.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
That really helped.
Minute
I at least
Yeah.
helped a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gauri. Yeah. Yeah. Can we stick to the 2 to 3 minutes? So we can cover all our topics. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Fatima.
Yeah. In my case, what happened is always both the boys were, males. So the boy bonding was happening a lot. The younger one started looking up to his brother as a role model. My elder one, by nature, he was very curious. He's very friendly. So he was very happy when his brother was born. Slowly, he started realizing, that things are different. But he would be very curious in the activities which we used to do with him, the therapies which used to be happening, and he would want to join in. And every time he joined in, the younger one, would be more happy doing the stuff because her brother is doing it. So things started working out, and we started giving him credit, which he rightly deserved. And we started appreciating. Even the therapist started realizing that when OS is around, that Usaid used to be more happy because he felt everything his brother is doing is fun to do, and everything which the adults are telling him to do, the therapist, teachers are telling him to do, is boring. So there would be times when he wouldn't come because maybe he had school or his exams. But most of the time, somewhere OS started liking that his brother is progressing because of him. Things which he's doing, his brother is following. So that encouraged him, that helped him. We made sure that his opinions. So many times what used to happen when things were not working, we used to try to do things. His perspective, the way he was thinking as a child, what would work, it would work for Usaid. So he started understanding, Usaid much more from a child's perspective, and that's how the bonding happened. Yes, we used to go every weekend. Saturday, Sunday would be for movies, for parks. Vacations used to happen 2-3 times a week, 2-3 times in a year, and weddings, social, outings. So all that gave them a lot of time to bond and be with each other. It just grew. The bonding grew between them.
Thank you, Fatima. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Mr. Amit.
Yeah. In our case, since both were boys and the age difference was 6, and the elder one was like getting up from the school, the younger one also was going to the same school. He realized, oh, okay, all his classmates are like looking up to him. I also need to look up to him. So basically, he accepted him as a peer, and whatever, like he used to tell him and play with him, like go to the backyard, take some water squirting guns, play with him, play with water. He also, both of them like water. When we go to the beaches, whatever the elder one tries to do, the even younger one, though is not capable that much, still he tries to do. They bonded over a period of time, and we did not do anything special that okay, you have to bond. It came natural to them. They were going by the same bus to the school, coming back by the same bus. Of course, they did not play a lot because the elder one had a lot more academic pressures. So they did not play a lot. Play only at the home level, nothing on the field or something. So the bonding is there, even though the elder one moved away from home for college. Their digital media and the WhatsApp, he keeps in touch. So basically, there is no separation between them. And since there is not much social interaction with other kids, so his brother is a friend as well as a brother as well as a friend for him. So a lot more bonding that way it happened to him.
Yeah, thank you, parents, for your sharing. We saw that togetherness was the mantra here. I'll take the next question. As your children grew up, what is the one strategy you have used to deal with sibling rivalry or jealousy? Yeah, who wants to start here?
I can start.
Yes.
Right, rivalry is going to be there. It doesn't matter whether you have one kid with special needs and other one being a NT kid, etc. Right. So as parents, we have to deal with that one. There is no big difference. I haven't seen that one as a differential issue. As parents, we have to deal with. But having said that, because of the bonding, probably the amount of rivalry they had is a lot lesser compared to a normal kids what they are growing up. That's what we realized. If it is the same thing, when we compare as parents with our siblings, how we used to deal with, versus when I see our kids dealing with themselves, they're a lot more actually bonded together compared to what either I see myself with my sister or my wife along with her sister or brother. So the bonding is one of the things that will reduce the rivalry, right? But one place where there will be a conflict as they keep growing is the time they demand from you, right? The special needs kid requires a lot more time and attention, and many times the younger one or the older one, whoever is a normal kid, would feel that are they not important, the parents are not spending time with them. So always we used to take turns as parents to ensure that whenever they are feeling bad about that they are not getting attention, one of us will attend the special needs kid when the other one is spending time with the other kid. That's one strategy we have followed to make sure that they are not becoming jealous on each other. The time demand is the only thing that we have seen where they are fighting with each other, right? Other than that one, as parents, we never saw any big reasons for them to have rivalry. If it is a normal situation, probably kids might be fighting for a pen or a pencil or ice cream or food. We never face those kinds of items when they're growing up, but the place where they demanded lot more because of rivalries, because of demand of time. So as parents, we need to make sure that you're allocating time enough to spend with both of them. And one of the things we have done is ensure the both of them, they have their own friend circle so that they can spend time with them separated, to ensure that they're not building that rivalry.
Thank you. Thank you, Krish. Yeah, who wants to go next?
Okay. So in our case, I would say, as Sir mentioned, exactly the same thing. So like rivalry, not much. So since the age gap is much, I'll talk from their individual perspective. From daughter's perspective, definitely the time. She definitely must have felt he gets more of my time. So as Sir mentioned, the same strategy adopted. That one thing which I did was, since mother daughter bonding, so that was very important because she was about to enter her teenage years. So we make sure that both of us go for the girls day out every once a month. We would go out just to the local market, buy some clips for her, some nail paints for her, or a coffee shop or an ice cream parlor. Once a month, definitely those dedicated 3-4 hours I'll give to her. And Papa has to take care of the son at that time. So that was one thing. And another thing, never ever have we missed her school events, because in her school they do not allow children for the special programs, annual days and all. So one of us would definitely go. One of us would do the babysitting, the other one would attend her program. So never ever even for the birthday parties, she had to go. So we would make sure that she goes for the birthday parties. It meant a lot of driver giri on my part, that dropping the son for the therapy class, dropping her to the birthday party, going back to pick up the son, then going back to pick her up, did all that. So never ever made her realize that she's missing things because of him. That was one thing. Secondly, from his perspective, now I can see when he's 7, this thing is coming, that jealousy, that rivalry. Oh, Didi is starting. You praised her. Am I not a good boy? So that kind of thing is coming up. So giving it the right direction is a thing. Okay, you be like Didi. You want to be like Didi. You want to study. You want praises. So, just putting words there. Instead of using the word jealousy, which he came up on his own after watching some YouTube stories, that I'm very jealous of Didi, declared to me. So I just told him, we don't be jealous with the family members. And then a lot of social stories always work with him. So that we don't be jealous with the family members, and we can learn things from each other. And then pinpointing that how I love that whatever he does is with so much of passion he does. So I mentioned, I'm not jealous. I'm trying to be like you. So the touch wood, but this is working out very well for him.
Thank you, Dr.
So let me share what I did. I had very high expectations from my daughter academically, and with my son, absolutely nothing. And musically, very high expectations from my son, and would never expect anything from my daughter. I mean, in general, more expectations from my daughter. and less from my son. So this kind of would make her feel very jealous that he always gets his way. He is just, I mean, he's given a lot of space, and this would make her angry. And also, son musically, when he would come up with something where he has to perform or he plays very well, she would feel extremely jealous that somehow he is musically so good. And why am I not getting that kind of praise from everyone around? And son, slowly, as he was growing older, like 9, 10, when my daughter would come with her report and she would say, like, I got very good marks, and when we are happy, I would never miss any of her programs, take him along with me for all her programs. So I wanted him to see his sister performing or doing anything, and this would make him feel very jealous. Like, she gets to go to regular school, she gets to, have friends, she gets to study, and she's getting a lot of marks. So, I mean, if they are jealous, they will be in their rooms all the time. So one thing I would do is all the time explain to her, like, I mean, he may be very good at that, but he definitely has something which you cannot do. So you have to definitely, look at what is so good about you that he can't do, and help him to do that. And vice versa, I would do with my son also. Like, I mean, you play so well the keyboards and the piano, but she can't do that. Then why don't you help her with music? You perform with her. And when there is jealousy, when my son is feeling very jealous, I always made my daughter do something very nice to my son, and I'll tell my son, do something very nice to my daughter. So that would actually reduce the jealousy. And with time, I mean, I must say, like, both of them respect each other's talent, and they have come a long way. So I always made it a point, when I would figure out that younger one is jealous of the older one, I will make him take a chocolate, go tell his sister, like, oh, you played so well, you did that so well, oh, your room painting is so good. I will make him do that. At the same time, I would tell her, go appreciate him for what he did. Do you know he has done this? I mean, isn't it amazing? Then she'll say, what big deal? Then I'll say, like, it's not like that. It's a big thing for him. So why don't you go appreciate him? I mean, you must. Then she will say, she'll leave aside her jealousy, and she'll say, I heard you did very well. I'm so happy. Later on, she took over my space. She started to say, Ma, I think you should not pressurize him. You should take care of him. Let him be. So she took over that space. I think it worked great that way.
3 minutes are over. Thank you. Thank you, Vidya. That was interesting. Yes, sir?
Yes. In our case, because the age difference was like, 6 years, jealousy was limited. There are a few instances they were jealous, but it was only short-lived. Like, we go on long trips. I would request the elder kid to sit next to me to help in navigation. The younger one want to compete. No, I would like to sit. But pretty soon he'll come to know that there's some work involved, and he used to give up. Like buying some clothes, he would compete. I want the same color. Or going to a restaurant, we order from a menu. He would want to be the first one to order. Or we should not neglect him. We should give him the upper hand to do the orders. So jealousy was not that much there because they were on different planes. Like when the report card comes, as the other speaker told, we would tell that even though the younger kid may not get great marks, we will tell the elder kid, go and congratulate him, and tell him that he can do better, and this is nice he has done. His hard work has really worked out. Basically, those small kinds of things. Nothing big as far as the jealousy is concerned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, for us, I didn't see much happening during the younger years. Luckily for me, one of my daughter's therapists had cautioned me about this. Like, she used to send son over for therapies, and this is the first thing she told me. She said, you will have to pay a lot of time and attention to your son, because now he's small, he's accepting everything. But the moment he enters adolescence and he becomes a teenager, and those hormones and all start coming, and they do make a difference in a child's, how he views himself and the world, and even how my daughter will start viewing herself and the world. So fortunately for me, the therapist had kind of cautioned me, and she said, you will have to spend a lot of time with your son because you are naturally taking more care of her needs. You will have to pay attention. So I was kind of forewarned, which I feel very lucky now when I look back in hindsight. So what I started doing is, as he started approaching adolescence, I encouraged him to develop his own hobbies, to kind of separate them so that, that doesn't happen, competing for the same things. So he used to be very fond of playing football. He's a very outdoor person. And that's when I started seeing the difference in their natures. My daughter is more of an indoor person and my son is very outgoing. So I started encouraging him to go start playing football, to learn the keyboards. And then because he developed his own peer group, his own friend circle, and he started doing very well in other things, apart from his sister, I found that he was more keen to involve her rather than he started feeling that she is being left out. So it was like the reverse thing. Instead of jealousy, it was more like he would tell me, Mama, why don't you get her also? So fortunately, that jealousy because of time also was not much, because once I was done with her therapies and when he would come back from school, like their schools also became different. So I started segregating my time. And I really thank that therapist, that she cautioned me about this. So I give full credit to her, because I don't know if on my own I would have realized this. I would have got more and more involved with her and probably neglected him, and as he's a very, very accepting child, you tend to take them for granted, that you have to be very careful about. Just because someone is accepting, please don't take them for granted. Please remember they are going through a lot on their own. So as a parent, you have to be a buffer for both of them. So with my daughter, I have not seen much of jealousy issues, more of like now she feels, a bit left out because he goes to college and she goes to a learning center. Things are different. But now I've told her that his college is just like your learning center. So, as the other parents also shared, that it's how we explain things to them, how we teach them that they both are separate individuals. They have their own likes and dislikes, and respect both and give enough time to both of them. I think that really helped. It really helped in my case, at least. And fortunately, I've not had too many issues with this, faced with, jealousy and
Excuse me,
rivalry.
time is up.
Yeah,
3 minutes.
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gauri.
Okay.
Yeah, Fatima.
In our case, jealousy was not an issue. I think he was too mature, he matured too soon. Jealousy has never been an issue, but we've always made sure that we are there for him, whether it is his open house, parent-teacher meetings, his programs. We were always there for him. Quality time we used to try to give him. Of course, the younger one got, more of our attention and he took more of our time. But bedtime was a time when Usaid used to go to sleep. We would be with him, and after he came from school, I would be sure, to ask him how was his day or how it has been, about, good things, bad things, whatever. So it became a routine for us. Bedtime also, we used to make sure that, we are having at least half an hour of, talk time with him alone. Now that he's grown up, and now that, the father and son are both into the same field of, so there is more father-son bonding because they go to work together and then they're together more. But when he comes back, there are times, when I sit with him alone and we share and we talk. Now the topics have become more serious. So yeah, we give him quality time.
Yeah, thank you, Fatima. Thank you. Indeed, jealousy is a very difficult emotion, and we have different shades of jealousy. Thanks a lot for your inputs. Yeah, we'll come to the next question. Yeah, your neurotypical child needs to live his or her own life, yet they feel tied down by responsibility. What have you done to help balance this? I'll just read it once more. Yeah, you got it right?
I got it.
Yeah.
And answer that one.
Yeah, right. So
Go ahead.
Yeah.
would you
Just
like to do
stick
it, sir, first?
Just stick to your time. Just stick to your time so that we can finish all the questions. I don't want to leave out anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly. So I think the first thing to do is talk to the child who's neurotypical and tell them that it is our responsibility to try and make maximum provisions for the future. So like what we are trying to now do is like we've sat down and thought of what ways would they become a liability on the child. So we have to be very honest about this, that yes, the special needs child as an adult will need a lot more support and a lot of things. So we have to look into issues which take care of, their finances, the living status, which does not depend on the other sibling. So I am now like, doing a lot of networking, and I have been attending seminars in places like I went to an organization called Amog, to look into legal guardianship, setting up of trust funds, looking at assisted living facilities. So you have to, as a parent, start planning, depending on what is the disability level of your special needs child. You have to be very honest with yourself and accept that, yes, I have to make provisions for this child, while the neurotypical child is allowed to carry on with their life, so that they don't at a future date feel that, my parents left the whole responsibility on me and I was not allowed to live my life as a regular adult. So that reassurance has to be done by very meticulous planning as much as possible by parents, financially and for living, and also, maybe whatever kind of training, depending on what education they get, so that the special needs child has his or her own life and the neurotypical child has his or her own life, because we cannot expect them to take full responsibility. That would be very unfair. So this is something I have told my son, because this was a point he brought up once and said, I'm not going to get married. I think I'll need to take care of her. I said, this is where you're wrong. You will get married. You will lead a normal life. You want to go abroad. I want you to go abroad because you have those dreams. So, and I'm going to, as parents, we are going to make sure we do the maximum possible to see that you have that freedom. So now I have started working on these things, legal guardianship, trust funds, and planning for her future separately, so that he does not feel, that I have to stay back and not pursue my dreams for my sister's sake. That should not happen. So, but at first, parents have to accept that. It's very important.
Thank you, Dr. Gauri. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Gauri. I think one of the responsibilities as parents we need to take is that the normal kid is not feeling that it's a burden to have a special needs kid, in any form or fashion. We need to ensure that their life is not getting impacted because of the fact that they have a sibling who is special needs. Uh, One part of it is financial part. We need to take care of that one, but it's more than financial. It's time and energy that you expect them. I think that's where the planning is required. Fortunate or unfortunate, we lived 15 years in the US, right, before coming to India a few years back. So our kids are born and brought up in the US. So they understand the financial portion is not a big deal. We can take care of that one, and there is a planning done with trust and all this stuff. But the challenge still will remain the same, is that if as parents we are not there, and once they are grown up and they are older and the normal kid gets married and having family life, what is going to happen to the special needs kid? That is going to be there in the mind of the normal kid. You need to balance it out. Only time can solve the problem. I don't think you can solve the problem, but they should appreciate that they have a higher responsibility than a normal kid. As long as they are aware of that one, and as long as they know that it's not a burden, I don't see a bigger issue on that one.
Thank you, Krish. Yes, Mr. Raghunath.
As I already mentioned, due to the age difference and he going away for his college education, and even when he was present here, we never transferred much responsibility. Back of his mind, he knows that, as the other speaker told, when he gets married and settled down, what will be there. So he knows there is a what he calls some amount of his time needs to be given to this aspect of his life. Beyond that, we were committed all through, and the elder kid is quite mature enough. He himself had mentioned, I am going to start a trust fund for him. I am going to see my life partner also will be accepting my younger brother. So he has all these things in mind. As the other speaker said, we cannot solve the problem right now. We can do a few plans in mind, but as time goes on, we have to see which is the best plan.
Yes, thank you, sir. Yeah, Fatima.
Yes, as all the other parents said, we are trying to take care of the legal aspects, but OS has this thing, that my friends should be. He takes Usaid with him, in his friend circles, and he has lost quite a few friends who have been, mean to Usaid, and I've told him not to do that. But he is like, they have to accept my brother. Only then they can be my friends. Now that he's growing up, I so whenever he goes out for parties and all, he's like, Usaid will go with me. Now I encourage, in some circles to go alone. There's no need for Usaid to go everywhere with you. I've also told him that after he gets married, that will happen after a few years. He's going to be staying separately in another house, not in the same house, because their privacy matters. So first he was saying no, but then now that is something which I feel he should be doing. We as a family should be giving them the privacy. He is aware of him going to be his guardian after we are no more, and on our part we are trying to make Usaid as independent as possible, because we don't want him to be a burden on OS. Of course, he has to be around as a guardian for Usaid to guide him. But we are trying as much as possible so that he won't be a burden on him.
Thank you, Pati.
Well, for us, this, I mean, my kids are a little on the younger side. So, but my experience till now says whatever I say, whatever I do, like I keep on explaining it to my daughter, the finance part as of now, that this all is sorted by us. You needn't worry about that. But I was a little taken aback that she plans to do psychology. She's in 10th now. She plans to take up psychology. But that day she came to me, Mama, my friend told me psychology doesn't mean a lot of money. So I was a little taken aback. I said, okay, so so should I take up commerce like Papa? Should I try for CA? I couldn't understand much. I said, how come money has become your, deciding factor? So she said, she didn't say much. She was, just making me just roam around here and there. But then she came to the point that I have to take care of him. And I was a little shocked, little taken aback, because this has been told to her several times that he is not your responsibility. And you can be and as other parents have mentioned, definitely we are trying. As of now, touch wood, it seems promising the way he's improving, that he might be independent as well. But for sure, financially, no ways you have to worry. But I think as far as my experience is till now, which is not much as compared to other parents, is they have it in back of their mind. Whatever you say, whatever you do, they are the siblings, they love them, they adore them, so they have it. Only thing we can do is remind them again and again they have their independent lives.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, Vidya. So I think from the young age, I have not given any major responsibilities to my daughter about my son, but wherever it was required, where we needed to make some major decisions for him, she was always consulted so that she would feel that she is responsible somewhere in his life, making certain decisions. And yes, we have always allowed her to, when it came till last couple of years, like she always had her life, she always had her friends, she would go out, sometimes she would be with him, but otherwise she's been quite independent in her life. But yes, of late, we have been discussing a lot more about him with her. And without us discussing, she has been getting more involved. Seeing us grow older, she started to feel it's my responsibility. Sometimes, like making certain decisions, like she never wanted to go abroad for her higher studies. She wanted to be in India mainly because she wanted to be as a back and support for us, because we have responsibilities with this child. And she would say, like, currently I know you are there and you are taking care of him, but I do realize that it's somewhere my responsibility as we grow older. I think children, the neurotypical child is very well aware of it.
So we don't need to, very consciously tell them anything much. They are aware, because as parents, when we are discussing, they are somewhere watching us discuss, and they do understand that they have responsibilities. So I think we don't need to do much about it. They are there somewhere, they love them a lot, and they will be there for them.
Yeah, a very conflicting emotion in itself, right? Both ways. Yes. Thanks for your inputs. We'll go to the next question. Okay, with the challenges come the rewards. What was your most rewarding moment with both the children together?
So I would like to go first.
Yes.
So couple of years back, where my daughter would never express her feelings towards her brother, and she's always been very, very closed about sharing about her brother because of the anger she had. But recently, like, I saw a very beautiful post. She had written something very beautiful just about her brother for World Autism Day awareness couple of years back on her Insta, and posted my son looking at the sky, so up above the world, so high, like a diamond. So my brother is like a diamond, he's a star looking at the sky, and I completely adore him. So this was the most rewarding moment. I felt like, it was such a joyous moment. I can't explain. Like, I think they just love their siblings. It's just that somewhere in the world of being neurotypical and special, they get caught. I think there is no separation between them. Thank you.
I think I'll say that of late, my kids have become they're quite independent now on their own. So I've been getting a lot of small rewards now, like my son says, okay, we both want to chill out on our own. Why don't you go out? You go out on your own. For years, you have not gone out alone. Call up a friend. Mama, only you go out for a coffee, not with Papa, not with anybody else, with some friend of yours. You have not had any me time. Now he tells me this, and this is like, I see the reward of so many years. And he says, no, you need your time alone, at least an hour, go for a walk, go cycling, do whatever, He says, or just go read a novel, something, but just get out of our sights. Let us also be on our own. And he's like, and my daughter and they can understand each other very well. And he loves cooking. So he's getting her involved with cooking, as a life skill and to help him out. So I think the rewards are what, if you want to call it that way, now that you've asked that question, is in these small little things, where now I'm beginning to feel that I can leave them independently, go out on my own, do a lot of things on my own. So, for me, that's a big sense of freedom as a parent, to be able to leave a special child, and it's a girl child, leave her safely with her brother, where they can both take care of each other and themselves too, and be able to, just do some small things on my own income. I see this as a big reward. Definitely for me.
Yeah, so for us, what happened last year is Usaid had to go for an interview. Now, for him, it was a first time where he had to go for a formal interview. Naturally, he gets very anxious, with the new things. So he was anxious. But it was a very rewarding and a bittersweet moment for me, because for the interview, Usaid wanted his brother to go with him. So somewhere he related that, his brother is the person who's going to be able to give him more of an emotional support than me. So I realized he doesn't need me as much as he needs his brother. Even in the lockdown, the utensils and all, both brothers used to be managing together. That, Mama is doing a lot of kitchen work, so let's do this together. So the utensils, so that was a beautiful sight for me, where, the brothers would be washing the utensils together. So yeah, there are a lot of small things. My husband and me, in the last few years, we have been, making trips to Calcutta. My in-laws are over there, so I have my father-in-law, mother-in-law. So that times always would be like, Mama, you go, we'll both manage. So we have made trips, for at least a week also, and the brothers have managed very well. So yeah, these are rewarding moments for me.
Okay, can I go on?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, yes, please go on. Please go on.
Yeah. For me, the rewarding moment is like, the younger kid with special needs. He is now getting trained in life skills, and one of his life skills is learn some cooking. When his brother recently visited us, he made it a point to make the breakfast for him almost like more than 2 or 3 times, to prove that he also can do something. And he also was scolding his elder brother, why did you come without taking a vaccine? You should have waited until you had the vaccine and come. It was really touching. We think always we have to take care of the other guy. This was a written, it boomeranged on us. We didn't ask him. We didn't ask that question to him. This younger guy was following the news. He said, you should have waited for the vaccine to come and then you should have made the trip. So that was really touching. So thoughts do go on in their mind. Maybe they don't express it to us in a timely fashion, but once in a while, this is like kind of, a big bonus for us.
Very, very nice. Yeah.
I mean, there are many rewards, if I can go next. It's not one I can call it out. Because once there is a bonding, both of them are girls, so they can stick along together much better than boy and girl. So they spend their own time, they have their own party times. So we as parents could relax after the younger one started taking the leadership position for us. And we could go out, leaving them alone, especially in Bangalore traffic. They don't want to come outside when we want to go for shopping. So many times, we just leave them at home and step out and things like that, which we couldn't do it when the kids were young, right? That's something that we started seeing of late last few years. Second thing is that, again, cooking is one of the passions for me and my wife, and fortunately or unfortunately, both the kids got into that one. Now they cook food even for us, right? Sometimes they say that, hey, you guys step out and we will start doing the cooking and things like that. So that's something that they enjoy on the weekends. Sometimes they want me to come and help them out. They keep my wife away from the kitchen, and they start doing the cooking and things like that. More importantly, these are all small things. But one of the big reward, what I can say is that the normal kids start feeling that what is the society not taking care of the special needs kids, right? That's one big surprise what we have taken today. If we see our younger one, she wants to do a lot more once she grew up. For the special needs kids, how do I help out all the other special needs kids? My sister is one of them, but yeah, I can take care of her, but what can I do differently in the society to ensure that all these kids are accepted in the society? Those are some of the thoughts that surprise us. Maybe she's we feel sometimes she's over matured. Her thinking is different. She always looks at it, your job is to make money. I'll take care of my sister and other special needs kids, right? I want to get into psychology. I want to get into something special needs related stuff that can help either the psychological feelings of the special needs kids or the societal kinds of things. So what we see, things still there is long journey to go for her. She's still in her 11th grade, but we see that that could be one rewarding thing where the thinking of the kid has changed, right? When we see our siblings from our generation, where there's not acceptability for the special needs kid, where I have seen my younger one taking the responsibility that these special needs kids needs to be treated differently. They need to have a societal status. That is something that I'm noticing from our younger one, which is a bigger reward for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Krish.
Yeah, so actually for us, it has all what has been mentioned. Like right from what I mentioned earlier, when he wrote in best friend column, without a blink of the eye, his sister's name at the age of 6. So that was one moment. Another is now when, as sir mentioned, they don't want to come out with us. They prefer that both of you go out and we will listen to some music, on a high volume, which I am allergic to. So they are like, you go out and let us just chill. This is my son's works. Ki, Mama, please go out. We'll chill. I'll chill with Didi. So, or, the rewarding experiences when I see the sensitivity level of my daughter's friends, because they have been introduced to this world through her. She has had a stable friendships for over a decade now. So they all have seen my son growing up, and I can see the kind of acceptance they have for, not, I mean, as sir mentioned, it's not only for him, because their school, their class also has some special needs children. So their attitude, it's not only my daughter's attitude, it's a daughter of her friends, it's the attitude of her friends as well, which has changed towards those children. So because now they find, they can see the other side of the story. So that is one reward I see. Another is, definitely when the way he talks to her, the way he communicates with her, he doesn't communicate this way with us. uh, I mean, like, they are at equals. So the way he tells her, Pihu, aaj mujhe bahut dikkat hui. So she would say, what happened? Ma'am was explaining something. It was so difficult. So she said, what was she explaining? He said about living, non-living, and I couldn't get it. So she said, oh, that's easy. Whatever. She gave a very, I mean, embarrassing answer to it, but that, whosoever passes a stool is living, whosoever doesn't is non-living. And my 1 month of hard work and her one moment, and he just got it. So, this is what I figured out, that these are very, very rewarding moments when they have their own independent relationship, when they don't want us.
Nice. Yes, who's left? We're done? We're done? Okay. So much of happiness from little things. We don't even realize, right, when it's happening. Yeah, we'll go to the next question. What is the one support system that has to fall in place which would help the future of both children? Yes, doctor.
I think we need to sensitize society. This is what I personally feel. Because we have lived in virtually every corner of the country now. And the two things I found missing was sensitizing people about what is special needs, the kind of misconceptions people have, and I'm talking about I'm talking about educated people here, okay? People who are highly educated, even they have misconceptions. So awareness is very much needed. It's only when the larger picture, when people around you have awareness and acceptance of these children, then a natural support system is created. And second thing is, you also need a lot of facilities. There is a huge gap between the amount of facilities available and the number of people who require and access to it. Like some of the places we were transferred to, there is nothing available for like 300, 400 kilometers. People have to go once a month to some place, get some therapy done and come. Now you're talking about a support system at a very high level. It is not there even at the basic level. So I think some way, like we are in the, like you're in the south, and a lot more facilities are available here compared to the north even now, and especially if you go to the northeast, it's lacking even more. So we need to see how we can bring some kind of parity. So the government, awareness of the governments also have to come. So maybe we parents have to speak to governments, try and help other people like us in all parts. It can't be, you cannot say there's a support system unless it is more generalized. This is what I personally feel, because it can't be in a pocket. It has, because your kids are going to live everywhere. They're going to live after you are gone. They may want to go somewhere else. So suppose you go to a place where there is neither awareness nor there is a availability of facilities, how is it going to be possible? So, living in a nutshell is not possible. We have to spread awareness about special needs. We have to create acceptance in the larger society among people, and we have to, somehow work with NGOs or whoever, whatever, to try and bring more facilities, encourage parents to take up special educator. Like I have switched to special education and I am a special educator now. And I have started taking therapy classes for kids online. And even I go to my daughter's learning center and work with other kids. And I do it free of cost. I don't even charge them. Because for me, this is my way of giving service, returning back the good stuff I got. So I feel each individual has to try and create, some kind. That is how your support system and base system is going to be created. It's not possible for a parent to do it alone. It has to be done on a larger scale. So the best way is through awareness and creating more, base for facilities. This is what I feel.
Yes. Yes, Fatima.
See, on a personal, yeah, I agree with what Dr. Gauri said. But on a personal level, what I've done is I've connected when I benefited most from the parent support group. So, in Mumbai, we have Forum for Autism. So when I connected with more parents, what they were going through, I learned so much, from their experience, from their sharing. Whatever issues I had when I used to share with them, they would be able to give me so many new advice and suggestions. And they understood what actually the issue was rather than the normal, friend circle which I had. So I feel somewhere, because the sibling is going to be responsible, whether you accept it or not, it is a known fact that, the guardianship does fall on the sibling. So what from my end I've tried to do is I've got my elder one connected to all my friend circles. Most of them are like families, they are like extended family for me. So when we are not there, at least he can connect to them if he has some issues, problems on how to, deal with situations with his brother. What I'm also trying to is get him connected to more siblings, because I think the siblings, they are the ones, who will be able to share what they are going through. So that is another thing which, I'm looking at, getting him connected to more siblings so they can be supports of him. The way we parents are supporting each other, they can support each other. They also have their times of, when they're going through bad times, when they need to share and talk to others who understand what they're going through.
Thank you, Fatima. That's what we were trying to do. Yeah, because we need our siblings to take care of our siblings also. Yeah, we had a very good interaction yesterday with the siblings where they actually could vent out and speak out their emotions. So I know support structure in place is a lot important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes, who would like to go next?
Yeah, I could go next.
Yes.
I think, expecting something is going to fall in place probably is a myth. We need to live with the reality. It takes time, right? As we see the societal changes, if I go back to the statistical analysis, the number of special needs kids that are there today in the country or in the world is percentage-wise a lot more than what it used to be in the past, right? And it takes a lot of time for the governments to actually create a support system. Probably the advanced countries, they have gone little ahead, creating old age homes, etc. type of things for the special needs kids. But in India, we don't see that much happening because it's still in progress, right? So one of the things that can fall in place if it happens for in whatever the form or fashion is that creating that support system for the special needs kids in case if there is a need for them and to be taken care. What if something happens to the family and only the special needs kids is left out and nobody else is there, right? And most likely the family may not be there to take care of them, even the immediate siblings, right? We might be fortunate having somebody, our siblings taking care of our kids, but what if something happens? I think if something should fall in place by the government or by the special needs groups is start thinking about that one. How do we take care of that when they become old, when they become alone, or things like that? If something can be done for that one, I think we as parents needs to group together to start enabling that one, because we are seeing the journey now and we will end up seeing the journey a lot more, and our kids will end up facing the dance and song, if I can call it out, And we need to make sure that they are not getting burdened or bogged up because of this.
Thank you for your inputs, Krishna. Yes.
My take is
Yes.
the society awareness. You see, I'm in Gurgaon, which is supposed to be one of the better off places for our kids, right? But my experience when I was hunting for the school for him was not very pleasant. Most of the, you see, as sir mentioned, the numbers are soaring of the special needs children. And most of the school, if you call them up, the answer you get is no vacancy. You don't tell your kid is special needs. Till then, they are very much interested in talking to you, telling about the facilities. The moment you mention special needs, there's a, they get the shock, electric shock, and they go like, no vacancy. So, and their tone, the way they talk to you, it changes. And I'm talking of some big reputed names in Gurgaon, NCR, the capital of the country. I'm talking about Delhi. We were ready to move to Delhi as well. So the more transparency, the more policies regarding how many, I do understand. I'm not asking that you have 10 special needs kids in one classroom. I do understand the complexities of handling our kids, but have some transparency that we will have 20 per 15 regular cakes, one special needs kid, something like that, some policy, and the schools should be answerable. Because the more, I mean, what is it? No vacancy, and it's over from their side. I am discussing this because my child is younger. This is one thing I have seen, recently. And let me tell you, we luckily got through an inclusive school, so the children who are growing up with him, they're so very well aware. He's just in grade 2 right now, and the way they look after him, it's not very overtly looking after. It's very subtle care they give. That when he's in the time of online classes, when he's speaking, they would go on mute, let parents speak. He doesn't speak much, or if they join before the class and teacher hasn't joined, they would say hi to him. Hi, Paren, how are you? What did you do yesterday? Because they are together from KG standard. This is how they have been taught. So, a good inclusive school not only can change the life of the special needs kid, but it can change the society as well. So, all the schools have to be inclusive. I don't think so. This should be a choice anymore.
Yes, doctor, I know. I can understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, just like everybody has mentioned, the societal awareness is very important, and some efforts from parents. They can have some vocational vocational schools, wherein that vocational school need not be like the regular vocational schools, but like you have the prison workshops where the prisoners turn in something, and they are getting paid something, and it's been sold separately. On that basis, they need to have some vocational schools for special need kids. So that is awareness they have to give. And as the other speaker mentioned, like now we have the RTI, where they have to have low-income kids in a school, a certain amount of low-income kids in a school. Why not have special kids all in a school? Maybe academically, or they might not be result-oriented, but still they are doing a big favor for the society, just like they're doing a favor for backward economic classes. So that is something it has to be mandated. I don't think it will come on a voluntary basis.
Yes. Yeah, Vidya?
I think the only answer is sensitization at different levels. Firstly, I think at home, then society where we live, everywhere. I think sensitization about these children or these individuals and their concerns, like I think it should be a very consistent process, and each one of us doing our bit will really help. Only that much we can do, and really, I think it really helps sensitizing people around, because I remember when my son was young, the kind of comments I would get. And currently, after like I made it a point to sensitize people living around me about him. I'm very particular about that. So after sensitizing, like people take a lot of care. And definitely, there is a huge shift that is happening around in the world because of sensitization. And when we consistently do it, I think different kinds of support systems will come. But yes, of course, I think a lot of this, the parents are the first ones who will spearhead. Siblings, parents, then well-wishers, then groups like Mitra, like we, as we come forward and then we take up this responsibility, and when we do it, I think somewhere there will be a shift globally happening. But only mantra is sensitization. It's a lot better now compared to before.
Yes, Vidya, that's a very positive response.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so parents, the last question. At Mitra for Life, we are trying to create opportunities for the youngsters with autism and special needs to socialize. Allowing them to have their own friends, we feel will take some pressure off the siblings. What are your thoughts on this? Want me to read it once more?
Not required.
Mr. Raghunath, can you go first?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea. There is no question about it. The social networking is very important, and Mitra for Life is really filling in a huge gap. And I have no second thoughts. I'm just elated that you guys are in the picture now.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent initiative. Wishing Mitra for Life all the very best. Very happy to hear this. And I think many more organizations like this should come up with more possibilities like this. That's about it.
Thank you, Vidya.
Yes, a very good initiative, and my best wishes to Mitra.
Yeah, Fatima, I would like to know what do you think this would really help?
It will help. You're trying to get more.
We want your special needs youngsters to have friends like your neurotypical child would have.
Yes, and
So
it's
that's
the need
basically
of
what we're
our-
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very helpful. And I think there are many kids who do not have siblings. It's going to be very helpful for them. And if you're thinking of the siblings, that is going to be, take a little bit burden of the siblings. That is also a very good initiative.
Yes, because however responsible our siblings are, they are also still children, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
Right. Hmm.
It'll give them some breathing space.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, so I got to know about Mitra for Life just recently, to be honest. And when Dr. Madhuri explained me the work you do, I was so elated and excited because this is something I had been, like kind of having the vision about, like, this should be done. I was not aware this is already being done. So like, because you see, this is one thing which are even, neurodiverse kids need badly, the friends. Like if I talk about my son, he's 7, and his biggest thing is this only, the friends. Because with neurotypical kids, there's the care involved. The friendship has to be at the level where there's no judgment, they can accept each other, so the need, this is one thing I'm, really, I mean, this is wonderful is the word for it, because they need it. Definitely the siblings will get the breathing space, as ma'am mentioned. So even for us, this is a dream for me. He having friends and playing with them, talking with them, like, this means a lot to me as a mother.
Definitely. Hmm.
Sorry to interrupt, but I also
Yes.
feel this will sensitize the kids, who are going to be coming in to be friends with our kids. So yeah, as we are talking about awareness, this is a very good step.
Definitely.
I have also been introduced to Mitra for Life recently, thanks to my friend Samyukta, with whom I did a course recently. And I'm very happy to see, what you're doing. And as we are just planning to settle down now in Bangalore, like we have led a very nomadic life for the past 20 years. And now, because of both the kids and obviously their requirements being more important, so I have been actually looking out for something like this too, so that my daughter can fit in somewhere, because she's basically a bit shy by nature, apart from all her special needs and other things. I want her to interact where she is, as she mentioned, without judgment, without any just basic acceptance. And what I found in her learning center is this, they are mostly, many of them are neurotypical kids with dyslexia who come. So, and I find, and there's a mixture of neurotypical and kids with special needs in that small little learning center where I take her. But I found that there is good acceptance on both ends. And left to themselves, children are much more accepting. It is actually the adults who pass on their impressions to them. So I think kids on their own learn a lot from each other. There is a lot of peer-based learning happening. Even among special needs kids, people have this feeling that what can one special need kid learn from the other? That's a very false impression people have. So this is, I think, a very good idea. And I am also very keen to become a part of it. So really good initiative and happy to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Bangalore, Dr. Gauri. Yeah, Krishna?
Yeah, I think initiatives like this will help a lot. And also there could be some kids volunteers, as I see more and more the awareness is increasing. The normal kids, they may want to be friends with the special needs kids. I see a lot more acceptability coming in. And also, one of the things we need to realize is that as the kids grow older, they may want to share their thoughts with somebody outside the family, like a normal kid. Even though they're special needs kid, their thinking still will be like a normal kid. I want to have my own friends who are normal and want to share things. So things like that, we need to take care, and maybe we need to expand that point to see who wants to volunteer and spend some time with these kids and create a bonding. Like for example, my daughter, she still have some friends from her high school in the US, right? And they're willing to lend their ears once in a while for her. So we scheduled some time for her on a weekly basis where she can spend on the phone or a FaceTime or a video call where she can be alone sharing her thoughts, let her feelings go out. These are some of the things that even though they're special needs kids, they may not want to share that one with their sibling or with their parents. So let them have some friends, expand the network so that, there will be a lot more people they can listen to the special needs kids. I think that's the place where, we should start moving towards.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Just a last bit. We have all parents as viewers. So any message for parents in the audience? Will be very valuable.
I would like to say that, the sibling is also the kid. Do not compromise on them. They do matter. They are the real heroes. This is what I feel, because their life has just changed. In my daughter's case, she was a single child for 8 years and her life just changed. So we have to be sensitive for their needs as well. And you be sensitive for their needs and rest will follow. They will form the bond as well. They will be the friends as well. And another thing is things do get better with time.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes.
No, I can share.
As she mentioned, sorry, you go, sir. I'll speak up.
No, one thing is that as parents, we need to spend a lot more time with the society, educating the society. I think one thing, if I can call out that we could have done better is actually spending a lot more time with parents and telling them what are the do's and don'ts. Normally, we are so busy bringing up two siblings who are completely different. Our time is spent there, but we need to also look forward because there are younger generation, their parents with kids coming up, they need help also. What we learned, we need to impart to them. I think as parents, we need to spend a lot more time at least giving our experiences to others.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
think
Doctor.
I wanted to make a similar point like Krishna sir only that yes, I think as parents our duty is also to spread the word, because the only way acceptance from people around us will come by sensitizing them, speaking to other parents with children with special needs or where they have a combination of a neurotypical child and a special child, and do whatever we can with our knowledge which we have gained since so many years, try and share that knowledge, create an acceptance for us first of all, because we become kind of role models, unless we show that we have actually done it, there's no way you can talk practically done. So when you are able to, bring up both the kids in a way that there's some kind of balance as much as possible, given your situation in life and other things, it's very important. That is a very strong message to other parents also, and also to the society around us. So, families need to accept them, friends need to accept them, especially for the neurotypical sibling, because they need a lot of support. Once we are not around, we have to be very realistic about it. They are the ones who will need more of that support system. We have to remember that, as Dr. Madhvi said, they need a lot of support. So these two things are very important.
Yes, thank you. Vidya?
I think it's so important that we all be there for each other. So, and as a parent community, like we should be accessible to others. If there is any need that any other parent has, being there for them will really ease out, like make all of us feel that, okay, I have somebody whom I can reach out to, and I'm not alone in the journey. So that really helps. And of course, I think all the other points have been covered by most of them. Completely, sensitization, completely. And also, I feel like I have been in a phase where I went on a denial and I never accepted. So for a very long time, like, I would feel like, why should I even tell the world that he has an issue? So I don't need to tell. But I think after at some point of time, just being very open and saying that, yes, he's different, really helps, Just being, very practical and saying as is, being as is really helps. So that's about it.
Thank you, excellent, yeah. Fatima?
Yeah, I think everybody has mentioned everything. As far as the neurotypical child is concerned, by default, I think your special needs child is your focus of attention and takes away most of your quality time. But please give quality time to, your neurotypical child. What I have modeled to him is, there have been times where, I have showed him my weakness. I've, cried, in front of him. So they should also know that, they are also not, they cannot be strong all the time. They can have their moments of weakness too. And at such times, you should be there for them.
Thank you. Yes, sir. So one advice.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, having these support groups is very important so that we can share our experience to new parents. Each one has, because we're talking about special kids. Each kid is special. They cannot get it in a school environment. Only if they can talk to the parents who have in that spectrum, they can get a lot more experience, and it'll really benefit a lot, because we all have, really tripped a lot and learned a lot. So I wish we all have this parental support group where somebody can tap into it and get the benefit of it. So that's my take on that.
Thank you. Very heart-touching inputs. Thanks a lot, parents, for your sharing. I'm sure it's going to benefit all the viewers who are watching you. I would like to say one thing. At Mitra for Life, we are looking at creating a change and putting a structure into place. And I would love to invite all of you to be part of it. Yeah, tomorrow we will have the heads of organizations who will be speaking. So whatever inputs we've got from you and from our young siblings, along with everybody, we'd like to put a structure into place so that we can benefit each and every one of us. So how we sensitize the society, what to do. The children yesterday spoke of putting it into the education system, training children right from the beginning, making it inclusive. So they had really very inspiring inputs to give. As adults, we may not even have thought of it, but yes, it was really inspiring for the inputs they had given us. So please take part, attend tomorrow's session, and we'd welcome all of you to Mitra for Life. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, parents. That was insightful and informative, and I'm sure there's so many takeaways from today's discussion. Before we sign off, the video that we played at the beginning, and we had some audio issues, we'd just like to take a minute of your time, just another minute. Just a glimpse of the work that we do at Mitra for Life, and then we'll sign off. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತೋಗೈತ್ರಿ?
Thank you, everybody. See you all tomorrow for our final day of our Nurturing Sibling Relationships program.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.